Today on the Bourbon Bytes podcast, Copper and Kings drops a face-melting Hazmat Brandy, Old Overholt releases its boldest cask strength yet, and a leak from Xbox suggests a massive win for retro game collectors. Plus, I'm pouring up a throwback review of Cask Strength Canadian whiskey. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Bourbon Bytes podcast. I'm your host Clifton, and this is the week of Thursday, August 6th, 2026. And as the days get hotter, so is the whiskey in our glass, because we have some news about some high-proof whiskey, plus a little throwback review to one of my favorite Canadian whiskeys of all time. We got a lot of news to cover in both whiskey and video games, so tune in and pour yourself a glass. The first of which is not a whiskey but a brandy announcement. This is coming to us from Copper and Kings out of Kentucky, and they are opening up first access to some of their exclusive bottles online. So previously these were distillery exclusives, so you couldn't find them anywhere outside of Kentucky, but now they're putting out some of their highest proof and oldest brandies online for everyone. And I gotta say, these are very tempting. The one that's the first listed in this email is a 10-year Hazmat apple brandy that's been finished in rum casks. This one comes in at 147.6 proof. So it's natural barrel strength. It says the rum that was in here was previously held for 23 years. It's a Nicaraguan rum. So that's pretty incredible. And it's only $110. I think that's what it surprises me the most about this Kentucky-made brandy is it's just as good, if not better, than a lot of Kentucky-made bourbon based on my experience at Copper and Kings. You know, I've had quite a bit of their stuff, and it comes in at a ridiculously reasonable price for what it is. In addition to this, they also have a 9-year Hazmat apple brandy that comes in at 145.4 proof. That one uses a former bourbon barrel for aging, also coming in at $110. And if that's a little bit too much proof for you, they also have a 12-year American brandy, a little bit more approachable, at 119.2 proof. That one comes in at just $90. So I'm really excited to see these previously distillery exclusive options available for us to purchase online. I will definitely be placing an order. I'm not sure what I'm going to get yet, but those Hazmat exclusives sound pretty delicious. Now, of course, you can buy their other spirits on their website as well, like their King's Proof Bourbon, their Revival American Brandy, and their other regular releases. But I wanted to point out these previously distillery exclusive options are now available, so check it out. All right, well, speaking of now available, there is a new edition of Old Overholt Cask Strength. And when I found out about this, I was kind of caught off guard because I always say I love the original 10-year Cask Strength release that came out back in 2023, and I really like the 12-year one that came out back in 2025. So I associated the 11-year with the 2024 release, which just to me wasn't my favorite of these Old Overholt Cask Strengths. But now to hear that there's going to be a new version of the 11-year, I'm going to have to start checking those shelves a little more closely because I'm willing to give it another shot. Again, I just think that was my least favorite of the 3 previous releases, but that doesn't mean that the 11-year for 2026 isn't going to be my favorite of them all. So I'm looking forward to trying that. Again, I'm a huge fan of these cask strength Old Overholts. For the price and the proof, it's really one of the best steals in American whiskey, and I just really love their stuff. By the way to tell about this new release is the fact that it is 125.6 proof, whereas the 2024 release was 117.4. So just something to keep in mind. Another new announcement comes to us from the Macallan. They're releasing their final Harmony Collection Whiskies. And these kind of surprised me because the big leading headline is these were coconut-inspired whiskeys. So I was like, wait, is Macallan out here releasing coconut-flavored whiskeys? No, that's not the case. But they are inspired by different coconut flavor profiles. So these are just launched this Tuesday, and there's 2 different releases, the first of which is called Inspired by Fresh Coconut, and it's bottled at 46.3% ABV. Now they're saying this flavor profile reveals fresh coconut, citrus, and tropical fruits with a palette of coconut milk, zesty lime, and a soft sweetness, leading to a bright floral finish. Very different than what I would expect a Macallan to taste like. I mean, I get the brightness, but coconut is such a unique note. I don't know if I've ever gotten that on a Scotch. So I'm curious, not convinced, but curious. The other one is they're inspired by toasted coconut, and this one's going to be available at their global travel retail partners. They say this one is described as a toasted coconut and crème caramel flavor with white chocolate on the nose, a palette of coconut truffle, and charred pineapple and frangipane. I guess frangipane, is that similar to marzipan? I've never heard that word. Apparently, they're both sweet almond mixtures, but marzipan is a firm clay-like candy dough, while frangipane or pan is a soft, spreadable custard cream used as a bakery filling. The more you know. These are coming in at 140 pounds each, which is in line with Macallan's pricing. I'm not seeing anything about age statement here. It doesn't necessarily say on this press release how old the whiskeys are that are in here. They do have distinct labels. They're over a black background. The one that is the fresh coconut is a bit of like a purpley pink font over black, and then the toasted one is a white font over black. So keep an eye out for those when you are traveling. I would be very curious to try them. I do like a coconut dessert. Weirdly enough, I think I'm like slightly allergic to coconut, and I feel like I've said this before, but I always get these like really weird, like tingling, itchy feelings in the back of my throat when I have coconut. So it's a mild allergy. I don't think the Macallan's gonna give it to me, but gotta be careful. All right, well, before we get into our bite-sized review, there is one piece of video game news that I wanted to mention. So this is actually not confirmed by Microsoft, but there is a leaked email that they're going to start introducing disc to digital for their older games. And this is a huge deal for physical media collectors. I mean, we're seeing disc drives go away on these consoles, most notably the PS5 Pro that doesn't even have a disc drive unless you add external hardware to it. And I think this is a good move by Microsoft to really protect those that have invested in these games. Again, it's not officially announced. It sounds like it's in beta starting last month. I don't know the full details, but I do know that it's rumored to launch this October for Xbox One games. So if you have a physical copy of an Xbox One game, you can put it inside your console. It'll register a digital copy. And then if you decide to trade that physical copy, you can transfer ownership of that digital copy as well. So it's not like duplicating your copy. You can't just like put in your physical copy and then sell it and then, get your money back. They are tracking it based on the disc itself. Microsoft says they're putting this into plan themselves. They're not relying on the developers to do it. So it sounds like it's a very hands-off approach. And I think, honestly, it's better than nothing, right? I think a lot of people, the debate over physical discs versus digital copies is a big one right now in the world of video games. As a PC gamer, I've been digital only for many, many years. But I do know the appeal of collecting physical media. I mean, I collect physical movies myself. So I totally understand that, but I also have a digital library of movies. So this kind of sounds like the same thing. You can upload your existing games and have a digital copy of it for you to have forever, unless you decide to sell it. So that's cool, but it gets even cooler because there are rumors that starting in 2027, they're going to allow Xbox 360 games to be uploaded. So not only will you be able to play these Xbox One games that are currently available, you will be able to play your retro games. Now, nothing's been said about Xbox, like the original Xbox games, but I have a feeling that they're probably going to do something similar. I think this is a big win for Xbox because PlayStation has kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit by going digital only. So not to say they're not going to follow up and copy each other. They always end up doing that, right? Like when PlayStation has a big win, Xbox comes in and like, oh, by the way, we're doing it too, and vice versa. It tends to always happen. But I just wanted to mention this because if you are someone that is a physical media collector, especially for video games, you now will have a way to preserve your copies and playability across, all platforms. And I think that's really cool. And it's a big win for us retro gamers. All right, well, that does it for this week's news. Let's get into a throwback bite-sized review. All right, well, like I said, this is a throwback review because this is a whiskey that came out back in 2019, and I'm pretty sure I reviewed it or one like it, but I thought I would revisit this one 7 years later and share my thoughts on it. Especially because back then I was less experienced with cask strength whiskey, especially something as high as 128.6 proof. So that's why I'm very excited to revisit this J.P. Weiser's 23-year-old Canadian blend whiskey. Now, blended whiskey means something different in Canada compared to America and Scotland. Typically, J.P. Weiser's makes a blend of high-proof corn whiskey and then add in some lower-proof single-column distilled rye whiskey for flavoring. But in this case, it's made up of both corn and rye whiskey matured for a full 23 years and then blended together at cask strength. So this one comes in at 64.3% ABV or 128.6 proof. So not only are we getting a highly aged whiskey, we are getting a high proof whiskey. And as someone that loves high proof bourbon and American whiskey, I'm very excited to try high proof Canadian whiskey once again. By the way, the pricing on this was about $149 Canadian when it first came out, which is close to about $106 US. So very affordable for a 23-year-old cask strength whiskey. Now, the difference between a highly aged bourbon and a highly aged Canadian whiskey is usually in Canadian whiskey making, they use refilled casks, so they're not using new charred oak. So it's going to avoid some of those heavy oak bomb notes that I love in bourbon, but maybe not in a 23-year-old bourbon. I mean, I've yet to have Pappy 23, so I can't speak on that one, but I think that's pushing it in terms of age on a bourbon. But in a Canadian whiskey, it could actually still be very approachable. Let's go ahead and give this one a nose. Oh, wow. Surprisingly bright. I wasn't expecting that on the nose. It's got a lot of like citrus fruit, almost like orange zest or lemon peel. I mean, it really reminds me of the garnish on like an old fashioned or a Manhattan. There's almost a little bit of blueberry there too. I mean, man, I was not expecting this to be so bright. Now, going deeper in the nose, you do find some of those more typical notes like the caramel and the vanilla. Not necessarily screaming rye. Like I said, this is a blend of corn and rye. So while there's a little bit of maybe rye bread, just a bit, there's these other like really dominant, sweet, bright, citrusy notes that kind of stand out on top of it. It's almost a little perfumey in a way, but not in a bad way. It just wasn't what I expected this to be on the nose. I'm very curious to see how it holds up on the palate. Let's go for a taste. Cheers. Oh, wow. I mean, the first thing I get is the mouthfeel, right? Like that is an extremely like mouth coating whiskey. It almost feels like a syrupy, like a honey element to it. Now, of course, this isn't actually as thick as honey, but it kind of reminds you of if after you've had a sip or like a teaspoon of honey, the kind of way it lingers on your mouth, that's happening here in the glass too. And what's interesting is the palate is very different from the nose. So the palate definitely leads into that like baked goods, cinnamon, vanilla, caramel thing. I mean, I'm almost thinking like Cinnabon, right? Like it's got a little bit of that like vanilla cream icing on top, but it has a nice like cinnamon spice rather than the rye spice I'm used to getting. Not quite as sweet as like an iced Cinnabon roll, but still in that territory. I mean, it's still a really rich, complex whiskey. Once you get past that sweet bakery note, you get this nice back end of like spices. I want to say a little bit more of like wood spices. It has a little bit of that oak tannin flavor, but not in an overwhelming way. It's very subtle there on the back end. It goes a little bit woody, a little bit like not quite like tobacco smoke, but a little bit more just like the raw tobacco itself, the leaves. But ones that have been stored in a cigar box for many, many years. I mean, you can tell that this has some age on it, not just in the fact that the whiskey just is this flavorful and well developed. It just has that vintage kind of note to it that you only get on really old distillate. And finish wise, I mean, I'm pretty darn impressed. I mean, I knew it was high proof, so I knew it was going to be a little bit longer than normal, but that lingers. And I think it comes with that mouthfeel. It really does stick on the tongue and the throat, and it just keeps on going. I mean, I finished my sip probably 30, 45 seconds ago, and I'm still enjoying that delicious finish on this whiskey. Now, I've heard a lot of people say this is one of the best Canadian whiskeys ever made, and I'm not going to argue that because out of the ones I've had, this one is up there. It's probably at least in my top 3 that I've ever had. It's complex, it's nuanced, it's unique, and it's actually quite enjoyable. I honestly would probably typically enjoy this over ice versus neat. Usually when I have a higher proof whiskey, I like adding some ice to bring out some of those more subtle flavors here. But doing this neat, I mean, I am really impressed by how good this whiskey stands up, especially compared to whiskeys today, because I find it hard to find this incredible just blend of flavors all in one cask, especially for around $100. I mean, that's almost unheard of in today's market. I actually did a live stream of it 4 years ago. I just looked it up on the channel with supporter of the channel, Donald Rance. He's been a Bite Club member for many, many years, and he's a resident Irish and Canadian whiskey expert. So if you missed that, just look up Bourbon Bytes, JP Weiser's, and you'll see my initial review of this, along with the 15, 18, and 35-year releases. But this 23-year-old cask strength is just iconic on its own. And I think revisiting it versus being part of a full lineup has made me appreciate it even more because, I mean, really, it's such a unique, nuanced flavor that I don't get in American whiskey, and I love it for that. So here on the Bourbon Bytes podcast, I like to give just one score. I don't break it down by nose, palate, or anything like that. We're keeping it simple for the bite-sized review. And for this one, this being a, 2019 release, it's not available anymore, unfortunately. This is an exceptional whiskey, and I think it deserves high praise. So I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10 on the Bourbon Bytes scale. It's just an amazingly good whiskey for an astonishingly low price. Now, in terms of what's available now, I haven't heard of any new releases on this caliber from the brand. I know they've entered in the 2026 Canadian Whiskey Awards and they've done really well. They had a 24-year Decades series that came out for that, but I have no idea if that's available in the States as of now. I also see in May of this year, they released a Master Blender series, which combined a bunch of different finishes, but I'm not seeing anything about the age. It says it was released for $90, so really affordable price. But that one was not bottled at Cask Strength. So I don't know if they've done anything quite like this since. I'll have to ask our Canadian whiskey aficionados here, our listeners on the podcast. Let me know if there's been any new exciting Cask Strength Canadian whiskey releases, because I would love to try it, what a 2026 version of this tastes like. So well done to the folks at JP Wiser's. This is indeed an incredible once-in-a-lifetime whiskey. I mean, it's really been the best thing I've ever had from the brand. So I dig it. 9 out of 10 for me. All right. Well, that does it for this week's podcast. Thank you all so much for listening. If you are listening live, I won't be going live this Thursday. I have a bit of a happy hour thing happening with my day job. So I'm going to go hang out with those folks at a local brewery here. But stay tuned. I have a fun one coming up where I bought a bunch of Scotch Malt Whiskey Society releases, 3 of which actually I just picked up from their store, and I'm excited to give those a review for you guys. So that'll likely be next week's live stream. But until then, this has been the Bourbon Bytes podcast, a whiskey podcast with a gaming twist. Cheers, and I'll talk to you guys next episode.